so much GH, a case capa, and Medina, Gala Wahala Jumedi, and our knee egusu, I will share. Now, I was young for when you say, I dare Chibiate and self for I say 20 years or so dear. Yen yai a cheswa de Biara edda. Now, your boy a day a Ryan Senu Emu Enum. Rebecca ya November 12, 2020, and I am Papa JJ Rawlings, and then the when you baby a chrono chese, or Twan and Anom Ewa and Sedo Ewa Kolebu. Teaching hospital or because of a short illness a course so when you video muna owu at the age of 73. Now owu no abusuafo and sem dodo na esore binomo betu dwa ese chese NDC for echire mu na se funi de womo adea womo yi party leader and as a founder entie ne womo na ebesie no binomo nso kasa ne wo se mampanyin na enye de ensie no says no enete edwa eso ensem de dodo na ebobo ebaye na ene dey wonu ankasa ne ba ni din ede Zanetor Ajeman Rawlings papa ne ba dodo na edinim no doctor and so by profession ene dey wa ba abontin ede nsem bi abetu edwa afa ne papa enwo na ebusuafom ebra wo free mu eno no enhihye dodo na eba abontin ma yenya se December ni mu kwampo na wo mbesi ne nanso so abusuafom ma yehu say January na on the 24th and now one more edition yes say just a year down one by end 4 days year funeral state funeral pan and a one more yaman from 24th to 27th and no and a one more edibedi one more edgeman now and rather and so edia said there one more and share etieno one more edi was sitting your match say normal echo so kama and your one more have a year Catholic mass edi emma yam papanum Holy Spirit Cathedral I just say a bimususunum vigil at Air Force officers mess and so no dear president government officials and our members of parliament and the bimuso dignitaries and one more can a year home and a one more team cocoa pmo vigil night no acid now brass vigil night no emunum and I my main doctor Zanetor or non so and commotutium no what didn't send be ever to a jar farm brand papa ete asem in kita said na abrabo esi etiem edema wono ene na busuafo na wodi nsam tudwa na wo chemu say family life with my father was quite complicated na just bra na womo asabusua womo no womo papa etie no na enya de say womo fa no totoro topa esa na wodi nsam no etu edwa na just say womo ene womo papa etina enya all the time ena womo nya no na say womo hunu ewo efie na papa no wobo in so many aspects na ebi wo onso wa wutimi so ade we wutimi nya so yes to ya for so say e wo samunya de wo ye na ni nyina no wo de den e build wo mo na ebusuafo mo mayin gotie ye mame ana ya nuaba Dr. Zanetor nensema wo de etu eja efa ne papa ho asin say wo mo enyini bom as a family no how experience was no yemfa entu eja efa emamo.
Right, Zane, your father, you were the eldest child. And so what was family life like with him? You and your siblings, your relationship with your dad, and your mom too?
Sorry, it was quite complicated sometimes. We didn't live in a castle with him. I think that was a joint decision between my parents for 2 reasons. One of which was the fact that he knew that at the time, because there wasn't that much stability, there was a threat to his life at some times, and he didn't want us to be a part of that. So he felt that if we lived in a separate location, it kind of decreased the risk. The second reason, which I think was definitely a joint parent, where my mother probably weighed in a lot more, was to make sure that we didn't grow up with the airs and a feeling of superiority, but because by virtue of living within that, in the castle, for example, so it was just to have as normal a life as possible, which meant we didn't see him as often. But when we did, there was always something. He wanted to impart so much knowledge, and You know, if it wasn't teaching my siblings and I how to drive before our feet could even touch the gas pedal, it was, you know, teaching us how to fly the model planes or ride our bicycles. He was purpose-driven, and every encounter with him needed to have some kind of meaning and an outcome of sorts. He helped us develop a real love for nature. He really loved animals and nature, and he was really in his element when he was out in nature. That was interesting. My mother was the stricter disciplinarian. However, when she kind of ran out of options on what to do, she'd say, you know, she'd tell our father, and then, you know, you kind of back down because, you know, you don't even want the glare. You know, he had the glare. And we all got that kind of treatment. Or if there was something that you wanted and my mother didn't want to be the one to say no, she'll tell you, go and ask your father. And then that means that the answer is no, but she didn't say no. But by and large, he was, when he was with you, he was present. You know, and we didn't get to spend that time, the amount of time with him as an every day. But when you did spend time with him, it was fruitful, you know. And it wasn't a case of looking at your age or your size or your gender before he taught you something. He just taught you everything. You know, sometimes he'd be riding a horse and he'd pick Amina and let her, she was 5 years or something old at the time, you know, teaching her how to ride, or, you know, riding a motorbike and all of that. He was a combination of love and everything, just the combination. The man who we all got to know, that was a lot of what we experienced as well. And yet, in some funny way, when he wore the hat of head of state in public, we knew not to cross that line. And I remember when we were going to school, whenever there was a new fleet of vehicles that came to the presidency, he made sure that the worst vehicles that were almost unserviceable were the ones that came to the house. And I can't count the number of times when the car that came to pick us from school had to be pushed, you know, to start and all of that. And there was one time, I think, Kanabai was the chief of staff at the time, and he kindly offered to bring a relatively nice vehicle to the residence. And my father came around that day and saw it, and he did this walk around the vehicle, looking at the car, and no comment. And you thought, oh, no. And by the end of that day, the vehicle had been changed. Yeah, so that was the kind of person he was. Or he just did not, he wasn't someone who was an accumulator of material wealth. And I think when Ya and I were quite young, Ya comes right after me. And the gate was quite noisy. So as he would drive in through the gate, Ya and I could hear the gate, and we would run into our rooms and try and hide our shoes behind the wardrobe, because every time he'd come into the room and open the wardrobe and stand there for a few seconds. You have too many shoes. Why do you need so many shoes? You know, when he was young, he didn't need this many shoes. So why do we have so many shoes? So it was this lecture that you kept getting, and you thought, no. So as soon as he's coming into the room, we'd run ahead of him and try and hide our shoes, because we just couldn't handle the lecture over and over and again. I still don't have that many shoes, thanks to him and all of that trauma. But that was the kind of person he was. There was always something. You know, I remember he got the secretariat to print out a long, like 4 pages of words and their synonyms, and insisted that we should go through them and learn them so that we'd improve our vocabulary. Or whenever he'd come over, sometimes in the evenings, he'd spend a few minutes with Ya and myself asking us these mind-bending questions, you know, logic and, you know, how to test certain things, or one of these aptitude types questions. So he encouraged us to think outside the box, to stretch our mind a bit. Interesting man. Interesting.
Well,
na ebusia for say and what den nsem no etu eye eja na ebusia say de ye kan ede achem no enye enra edwumadi a wo mu di ye na chese wo mu awie enenye nne di a wo mu be ye ene chese wo mu awie eno de ye enhihye no egusu egu akwamu a wo mu ede atu wo no ma chese final one crampo de be ye na no ye lukuada on the 27th and I just one more Eddie Bibia ebesi eye ne kwan so a eno no no ntino wo mo ebo eye jamfo ne wo mo a wo be sympathize with wo mo no wo mo bo wo mo enkaye se wo mo susu entu eye anamom na ne nyom betimi aye ede abegwa bia no nya de se bia beye bibia na susu wo mo a se yesika fa mo se wo de woni pedua ba be kira mo ma hunu sem won susu na wo do eye ya papa no ede wo mo ebe hwe animu point na ye koso aka mo se ye papa wanya ne baby ko flight lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings na ye no enhihye ye no eda so egusu a chese ye starting na no kwasiada na ni nyina mu de be pie afri mu ede ababia no toma GH de ye de ebaba ba so mu live telecast any de ekeka eye ehun. Stay tuned to our channel, so subscribe here, FRMI, say the be ya, upload the video, and I'm so me notification bell no so enkwa ede, onso nsa etimi akabi. Na ebusia for ha and a brother me kwan ma me di dwumadi no esie, ekriskapa enemy that's ne yebusanehia. Operation. Midiane amansie nsonoma ana amansie bofu bi. Amansie sunsum kese magiatum na unse ho ne ma yete sunsum sam akire sunsum ase se obi pese wotena o man Ghana ni wiase no hu se bibi free soro ba dia too much Ghana aji won sam hwe na abrabo ba si wie abrabo ba dane na obo se mi hia ne ntam ana mi sua bi ntam a kame pono na mu ato na me safo ayira no kame hu ni ntam ye kire wade ye ma hu sunsum mu nsam ye ma te de ba hwe na kane bi aso ebe ti om nsam